why the New York Giants will have a top 10 defense this upcoming NFL season.
I want to give a special shout out to the sponsor of this video, Manscaped. So Manscaped recently just launched their Lawnmower 4.0. And listen, if you are a guy who does a lot of shaving underneath, the Lawnmower 4.0 is the perfect tool for you because listen, my first time shaving a couple of months ago went terrible. I had a bunch of scrapes, I had a bunch of bruises, and I also had patches because I didn't finish the job. So when Manscaped sent me the Lawnmower 4.0, I used it, and I was a little bit scared, okay? Because I was like, I ain't trying to give myself patches and give myself injuries like I did last time, my first time shaving. But when I used the Lawnmower 4.0, let me tell you guys something. It was a easy process. I had no scrapes, no bruises. It was no pain. Listen, if you're a guy who does a lot of shaving underneath, make sure that you guys go ahead and cop the Lawnmower 4.0 using my promo code JT for 20% off plus free shipping off your Manscaped purchase. Once again, make sure that you guys use promo code JT for 20% off your purchase plus free shipping. Your balls will thank you.
Last year, the New York Giants finished last year's NFL season with a record of 6-10. Now, a lot of people may look at the Giants' record from last season and be like, JT, the Giants were not all that good of a football team. Their record last year was not an indication of how good this team was, especially in the second half of last year's regular season. Like, the Giants from last year remind me a lot of the 2019 Dolphins. Like, okay, they started the season out slow, but then they gradually got better week by week. And remember when they pulled off pretty much the upset of the year when they upsetted the Seattle Seahawks? A large reason why the Giants were so competitive in the second half of last year's season was because how good their defense was. You gotta remember, the Giants were in playoff contention. They may have only won 6 games, but they still had a chance of making it to the playoffs because of how weak the NFC East was, because we saw Washington end up clinching the division and making it into the playoffs with a record of 7-9. So when you look at the Giants, their defense pretty much carried the load because Saquon Barkley, their best player on offense, got injured really early in the season. Then you had Daniel Jones, who even when he was healthy, he was a turnover machine, and the offense still wasn't all that great. So the defense really had to carry the team on their back, led by defensive coordinator Patrick Graham. And Patrick Graham did a really great job as DC for the Giants last year. And as a matter of fact, I wouldn't be surprised if we end up seeing Patrick Graham end up becoming the NFL head coach next year in 2022. Now, the Giants defense last year ranked 9th in points per game allowed with 22.3. They were 12th in yards per game allowed. They also were 15th and 11th in pass yards per game allowed and rushing yards per game allowed. So this was a really good New York Giants defense. When you look at this defense going into the 2021 NFL season, I think that this most likely will be a top 10 defense. Now, normally I'm pretty good when it comes to projecting how good a team's offense or how good a team's defense will be, and I have a lot of confidence that the Giants are going to end up having one of the best defenses in the NFL this year. Now, when you look at their defensive line was the strength of this team last year, led by defensive lineman Leonard Williams, who ended up having 11 sacks last year. He really surprised a lot of people because there were a lot of people before he ended up going to the New York Giants who were pretty much considering him a bust. He goes to the New York Giants and pretty much revitalizes his career. Now he's one of the best interior defensive linemen in the NFL. You also got BJ Hill, you got Danny Shelton. Then we can't forget about defensive end Dexter Lawrence, who had a pretty solid year last year. He had 4 sacks. You also got R.J. McIntosh. Now, their linebacker unit, Blake Martinez was a very big surprise because the big knock on Blake Martinez is that he's your old school linebacker, okay? He's not good in coverage, but he's really good against the run, and we saw that last year. He had 151 tackles, 3 sacks, 5 pass deflections, an interception, and 2 forced fumbles. Now, their secondary was really good as well, led by cornerback James Bradberry, which I told everybody, James Bradberry was going to be one of the best free agency additions of the 2020 NFL offseason. I ended up being right because he was a Pro Bowler last year. He had 3 interceptions and 18 pass deflections. Then okay, you look at what they did in free agency this year, you bring in cornerback Dory Jacks. Now, Dory Jackson was a former first round pick by the Tennessee Titans a couple of years ago. And when he was coming out of USC, he had a lot of hype because he played both sides of the ball for USC. He was also a wide receiver at times. He played corner. He also was, a big factor in the return game as a returner for USC. So he had a lot of hype coming out of college. When he went to Tennessee, his first couple of years were pretty solid, but after that, he dealt with injuries, and his performance on the field wasn't really all that great. Well, now he goes to the New York Giants, led by defensive coordinator Patrick Graham. I think he's going to be a very good fit in Patrick Graham's defense, because Patrick Graham is going to be able to get the most out of Dory Jackson. And Dory Jackson is a really freakishly athletic corner. Like, he may be one of the most athletically gifted corners that we have in the NFL, aside from Jalen Ramsey. Then you select rookie corner out of UCF, Aaron Robinson. You also got rookie corner Rodarius Williams out of Oklahoma State. And I like Rodarius Williams a lot. I feel like he should have been a second round selection. I feel like he was one of the more underrated cornerback prospects in this year's draft class. We also can't forget about Darnay Holmes. Then their safety position, you got Jabril Peppers, Xavier McKinney. Like, this defense is really good. Now, the biggest concern that you probably have if you are a fan of the New York Football Giants is going to be, where is the pass rush going to come from? Because you saw Leonard Williams, he led the team in sacks last year, excuse me. This year, we still don't really know who is going to be that guy when it comes to being able to get pressure on the quarterback off the edge. Now, you got rookie pass rusher Azeez Ojulari out of the University of Georgia. Now, I'm not really expecting him to come on the scene and have like a 10, 11 sack year. As a matter of fact, I think he probably won't be that much of an impact player for the New York Giants this year. I think he has a lot of things that he has to work on until he ends up becoming that dominant pass rusher. But you do have O'Shane Zimes, who was on injury reserve last year for torn rotator cuff, and I thought he was going to end up having a breakout season because he had 4.5 sacks back in 2019, the season prior, but injuries cut his season short. So O'Shane Zimes is a guy who I'm still really high on despite the injuries that he's coming off last year. I think he most definitely could end up having 8-9 sacks for the Giants come this year. You also got Lorenzo Carter, who also dealt with some injuries last year as well. So for the Giants, you know that you have some talented guys at that position. The question is, one, can they stay healthy? And two, can, their expectations be met on the field with their play? Now, this Giants defense, like I said, is led by Patrick Graham, one of the most innovative defensive minds I've seen in a very long time. Like, he has a really complicated defense. Like, I remember on Sunday Night Football when the Giants were playing the Cleveland Browns and Chris Collinsworth was talking about how complex Patrick Graham's defense is. Like, this is not an easy defense that you can just pick up the playbook and learn. Like, this is a lot of things that goes into Patrick Graham's defense. And normally the guys who have, the most hard offenses or the most hard to learn defenses normally end up being pretty good. So Patrick Graham is going into a season where this defense isn't going to have to carry the load as much as what they had to do last year, because first of all, Daniel Jones now has playmakers around him. You bring in wide receiver Kenny Galladay, Saquon's going to be coming back. The turnovers last year really hurt the Giants. And I'm going to say what I said last year about Tampa Bay's defense. I told everybody around the same time last year that Tampa Bay was going to have a very good defense because their defense was held back in 2019 because you got Jameis Winston turning the football over so much. Well, you bring in Tom Brady, a guy who doesn't really turn the football over that much and smart the football. He's going to help the defense out because he's not going to put the defense in awkward positions when they're in bad field position or they start out in the red zone. And that's how I feel about the New York Giants this year. Like, if Daniel Jones can slow down on the turnovers, this Giants defense is going to be better than what it was last year. And the Giants really bailed out the offense on a lot of occasions. There were a lot of occasions when the defense would go 3 and out. Then next thing you know, Daniel Jones would turn the football over, and 30 seconds later, they'll be putting their helmets back on and they'll be jogging right back on the field. So really, this defense is going to be really good. But if Daniel Jones can slow down on his turnovers, stop fumbling the ball so much, stop throwing so many spontaneous interceptions, that's going to help out this defense as well. Now, like I said, the pass rush is going to be a big question when it comes to this defense, because Leonard Williams had 11 sacks last year. Imagine how good this defense could be if they could find the guy who could end up becoming that dominant one-on-one pass rusher. They don't even need to have an edge rusher that gets 8 or 9 sacks. They just need to have guys who can come in and, give you like 7 sacks there. Maybe you have a guy who has 6 sacks on the season, 5 sacks. Like, they just need a good pass rushing rotation. So if the Giants can find that, don't be surprised if the Giants end up having one of the best defenses in the NFL come next year, which is why I believe the Giants are going to have a top 10 defense. I believe that with the improvements that they made in the secondary, that's going to help out the pass rushers. It's going to give those pass rushers more time to get to the quarterback. And also with O'Shea Zimes coming off that season-ending torn rotator cuff that he had last year, I think he could end up being that number one pass rusher that the Giants are looking for, aside from Leonard Williams on the defensive line. We also can't forget about Dexter Lawrence. So the Giants defense was really good against the run last year. I expect that to keep up because how good their defensive line is up front. I think they have one of the more underrated defensive lines in the NFL. Their linebacker unit, okay, from Blake Martinez, all right, you got him. But aside from that, who's going to be the next guy who steps up aside from Blake Martinez? So the Giants defense, they have some question marks, but when you look at how good this defense was last year, I can only expect this defense to go up to be in a top 10 defense, because if they can find the answers that they need to find at the pass rushing position and, at linebacker maybe, then the Giants most definitely will have a top 10 defense. And I believe that those questions are going to get solved. I believe that, they're going to be way more better at linebacker this year. And I do believe that they're going to end up having the guy who ends up breaking out when it comes to that pass rushing unit, rather that be rookie Azeez Ojulari, O'Shea Zimes, or Lorenzo Carter. So you guys let me know how good you guys think the New York Giants defense will be this year. Do you guys believe that the Giants will have a top 10 defense in 2021? Let me know down in the comment section down below. Make sure that you guys like the video, subscribe to the channel for more NFL videos and content, and thanks for watching.